Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mob Psycho 100 Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I have not talked about it, but I do love that the city's called Seasoning City, and we have the two middle schools. The one that Mob goes to is Salt Middle School, and the one we got introduced to this episode is Black Vinegar. I'm sure the all girls one had a certain name, but I actually wasn't paying as much of attention to it as I should have. But the name Black Vinegar definitely caught my attention. But yeah, it's the two rival gangs, one from Salt Middle School, the other one from Black Vinegar Middle School, are butting heads. And the one from Black Middle School are pretty tough, but they get thrashed. The ones from Salt end up getting thrashed by someone from Black Vinegar, and it's Teruki. And he's kind of like their ringer, as they refer to him as their Black Vinegar refers to him as their shadow leader. So they had to go and lick their wounds. So they tried to go to Musashi and the Body Improvement Club to try and deal with that. But he's like, no, our club is not for people being lazy. If you're here to pump iron and get fit, sure, but we're not here to just laze about and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, but what about them? And points to the telepathy club. And then I love that he just immediately walks past the dude being like, hey, Tinga, if you want to really tumble, we could, if you got an issue, we could take this outside when you want to fight or something. And it's oh, he immediately moved past that. So understandable, because I love later on they get pissed because they're right, their muscles, because it's right, their muscles aren't meant for fighting. It's are you stupid? Who gets muscles just for fighting? I am curious, why do they get muscle bound then? If it ain't for fighting, I guess it's just for self-esteem and probably good health and stuff like that. And I think that's what it represents, a strong body, strong mind type of thing. And it's about being healthy and, but not for the purposes. It's you learn martial arts, or you're supposed to learn martial arts for self-defense. It's you're not supposed to just willy-nilly use it, which is interesting parallel when you think about right, you have someone like Mob who doesn't willy-nilly use his powers, especially, well, he'll use them against spirits when the time comes, but he won't use them against regular people, and he rarely just shows them off. Probably could be more popular with his powers, but he'd also probably be ostracized even more, because once again, I don't know how many people at Salt Middle School know about his powers. It doesn't seem like it's a known thing, unless you're home dude from the telepathy club who went to elementary school with him and knows oh, he has powers. But even he's oh, I thought that kid could only bend spoons back in the day. Now he's tossing a whole bunch of weights around like it's nothing. Either way, this episode actually picks up exactly where the ending of last episode ended, and that was with the ghost popping up. I was there's no way that's Dimple. Turns out, in fact, it actually is. I wasn't expecting that. I was okay. I was trying to figure out this ghost thing situation, who are you, why you show up now? It's no, it's Dimple. He wasn't completely eradicated, which Mob is okay, cool, I can finish that. But he's no, don't. I'll turn over a new leaf. I'm going to be a good guy, because it turns out he's everyone, whether it's a star athlete, an actor, or a pop idol, they all want one thing. They want to. Everyone has their dream, and the reason why he was creating his little religious cult was because he's trying to. He wants to be God. He wants to become God. So that's what it's all about. And he's saying right, I'm gonna turn over a new leaf, but it's all BS. He's trying to manipulate Mob, which every time you turn around, you find a new person trying to manipulate Mob, whether it's Tomei and the telepathy club, or whether it's Regan manipulating him. Now we've got Dimple doing the same, being he's going to be so easy to manipulate, and then I'll be able to possess him. But the problem is Mob is not too keen on using his powers, and it's Mob doesn't think much of his powers. He's just having psychic powers doesn't really help you in the long run. When it comes to everyday life, it doesn't really help you. It's well, it doesn't help you understand girls or be able to talk to girls, nor does it help you during math class when you're trying to figure out equations, so... And that's what annoys Dimple the most. It's he's so steadfast on not using his powers when he could use his powers to make life better for himself and easier for himself. It's you could change this world, but you choose not to. And he's very staunch and very steadfast about just not using his powers willy-nilly, unless, like I said, the situation calls for it. I even love the only reason why he's around is because Mob went to Regan and Regan was like, oh, the spirit that's with you is so weak I can't even see it, so do whatever you want to. That's the only reason why Mob didn't kill you. But I love that he's like, no, this guy's BSing. Like, I can't sense a fragment of spiritual power within this guy. He's trying to manipulate Mob, but he's like, well, good, I'll try and manipulate Mob too. It motivated him to be like, oh, I'm going to use Mob for my own benefit. So he wants to keep Regan around because I guess it's like maybe he can learn from a fellow manipulator how to best manipulate Mob, because he's trying to understand Mob on every level. So that's why he's following him around, trying to understand him. Like he learned last episode a little bit about what's motivating Mob, but now he's learning about it even more. So like obviously love and not being popular and trying to be a part of the not trying, he actually is part of the body improvement club and everything. So. But we had these really interesting dichotomies, like when it comes to the different sides of Mob kind of being like represented in like very much like how Dimple is trying to manipulate him. We also have, I believe it's Tinga, like the leader of the Salt Middle School gang. He doesn't know about Mob's abilities. He just sees him as like, oh, he's someone that's part of the body improvement club. It's like, oh, we can use him, and uses him as a means of like trying to manipulate the body improvement club into fighting the gang from Black Vinegar. And I love that he wrote this letter, and Mob is like, oh my god, it's a love letter, because it's like, whoa, it says abhor. It's like, I don't know what I did to piss someone off. But then like Dimple is like, yeah, whoever wrote this misspelled it, and it's meant to be adored. He's like, oh my god, it's a love letter. But it's like, Dimple's like, no, it's not a love letter. You can look at this writing and clearly see it was Guy. It's a lie. He's like, wait, you just think it's a... Yes, Mob, it was a lie. It's time to let it go. But the problem is, Tinga signed it as like, oh, this is a girl with a heart, which his guys are like, no one's going to believe a letter. Like, no girl's going to sign it saying this is a girl, don't worry about it. But Mob is idiotic enough and desperate enough for, like, oh, any form of affection from a girl. He's like, oh my god, like, it'd be rude of me not to show up. So he gets set up as bait to draw out, because he instigated stuff with the Black Vinegars just to draw them out and for them to kidnap Mob, just to incite the situation and force the body improvement club to, go and rescue him. Which, hey, regardless of, they don't look down upon Mob. They are there to actually help him do his like athletic journey, and they're very ride or die, and they're like, yo, one of our members has been taken, all right, time to go, we're going to give this 100%. It's like, that's actually really dope. Like, they don't chastise him and they don't look down upon him, because for them it's like, no, if you want to improve yourself and improve your body, we're going to be there for you that journey along the way, and we're going to see one of our members all the way through, because he's a valuable member in this club. So, which is actually really sweet to see the like dedication they have. And it's not just Musashi, it's the rest of the group too, like the dedication they all have for wanting to help out Mob. What was it he called the Black Vinegar group? Tinga called them, like, was it you rice bastards? And they're like, rice? What's that mean? Even I was like, rice bastards? They're like, no, he meant to say rat bastard, but he's such an idiot. And they're all like laughing at him about it. Because even his own crew was like talking about like, oh, I don't think you used that phrasing right. It's like, yeah, that phrase, we just learned about it in class. So it's like, oh, like Tinga's like actually paid attention to class and trying to use, and then one of his guys immediately got hit with, what was it, the demon rush, where like he punches you like 100 times. It's like, oh my god, it's a special technique, you rarely get to see it. But it's like, oh, but he ends up, it's very rare, but we're seeing it this time. Speaking of techniques, I love we get another one of Regan's techniques. His like using essentially Photoshop, because there's a photo with like a ghost, like a person took a photo, and he ends up removing the ghost, digitally removing the ghost from the photo. And that's, once again, it's just like, you are such a terrible person, Regan. Once again, he could use those abilities probably in a more constructive way than rather than conning people into believing that he is some spiritual person that he's not. So either way, there's that side of things. But the other side of things I was kind of talking about earlier when I was like the dichotomy of Mob is that Masato ends up going and meeting with Ritsu. And we get an interesting perspective on Ritsu. Like, just like last episode, we learned that Mob has a complex. Turns out Ritsu has a complex as well. Because Misato is trying to say, like, oh, your brother, like, because, like, Ritsu is, like, really, like, it almost seems like he kind of has a little bit of a brother complex. And so, well, there's more to it. But at his base level, it seems like a brother complex. He's like, whoa, what happened to my brother? But when it's all said and done, like Misato is saying, like, oh yeah, like these people, he helped them out and they want to worship him. In fact, they put up like a almost like, hey, call this number, because they are still trying to find, I forgot what they called him, but they're trying to track down their new god, their, you know, that they want to worship, which I'm sure bothers Dimple, because he's like, well, he sees through what they're trying to do, but it's like, yeah, they moved on from me to Mob. But Mob has no intention of being like their savior or their god or whatever. But Ritsu kind of like talks about his brother, and it's like, oh, like your brother, because Misato is like, oh, your brother could be very popular, but he's like, no, that's not what my brother would be about. Like, using psychic powers like for trivial stuff like that is stupid, because it turns out everything that Mob isn't, Ritsu is. He's popular, he's good at sports, he gets good grades, like from top, like he's even part of the student council. It's like, oh, he's really good. So everything that Mob lacks and everything that Mob wants to be, Ritsu is, but everything that Mob has, it's what Ritsu wants. And I'm sure that's going to turn into a very complicated thing as the series progresses, because Ritsu is like, my entire world, my standard for the world was when I found out my brother had psychic powers, and he kind of wondered, like, maybe I would get some too. So we see him struggling to try and bend a spoon with his mind, and it's like, for him, it's like nothing he has matters in the grand scheme of things with like those type of powers, like, you know, and it just makes him feel lesser than. And I'm sure it rubbed him the wrong way when Mob said, like, oh, I'm envious of you, because he's envious of Mob. And I'm sure that's just going to start eating away at him more and more as the series progresses, which is just so sad. It is that thing of the grass is always greener on the other side. And so Ritsu only sees things from his point of view, and Mob only sees them from his, because he doesn't see what's seeping like beneath the surface of his brother. Which is interesting too, because that's a whole thing that Teruki says later on, where he's like, oh, like, you're only seeing the outside, you're not seeing what's beneath the surface, when everyone looks down upon him because of his small size, and obviously in comparison to the bodybuilding, the body improvement club, because they showed up, thrashed everyone at Black Vinegar to save Mob. And then they found out, like, right, it wasn't until the last minute they found out that this whole thing was a setup. So they did call in Teruki, but he didn't show up until after everyone had already gotten thrashed. And effortlessly, he ends up beating down every member of the Improvement Club. They are pretty tough, but they're like, oh, like, despite your size, you must have great muscles. He's like, muscles? He's talking down upon it because Teruki is kind of the antithesis of everything that Mob is. Mob isn't about using his powers to be popular and stuff like that. They didn't cross his mind. It seems like, I mean, I guess it's reflective in Mob's personality, and the fact is that he created this complex of now he bottles up his emotions, where it seems like Teruki is all about supremacy. And it's like, the only reason why he's getting in the middle of all this is like because Black Vinegar's gang is it sours his reputation, so he's asking Home Dude, who's at the leader of the gang, to step down when it's all said and done, because now I'm just going to kind of run things, because he's all about control. So he's a lot like Dimple in a lot of ways. So a lot of what Dimple wants Mob to be, Teruki is actually that person. So you'd probably be better off following Teruki and wanting to possess him. But I'm sure in the long run, it's going to be a thing if he's going to stick with Mob, because Mob is stronger. But we'll see. But yeah, we haven't really gotten the full case of what Teruki's like power actually is, because all we saw was Mob saying like, yo, you shouldn't be using your psychic powers like that in a fight, which Teruki was kind of caught off guard by, because he's like, oh, not only do you have psychic powers, because I guess he assumed he was the only one, but also the fact is that Mob recognized it, because everyone just, well, he laughed at people thinking it was just muscles and stuff, but I guess he was kind of purposely hiding his psychic powers, trying to make it so that he just seemed naturally strong, not showcasing the fact is he's got an edge in the fights because of that. I don't know if that's going to be like, we'll probably learn a little bit more about Todoroki next episode as the two of them end up clashing, but I am curious what sent him down this path of wanting to, and once again, just like Dimple said, everyone has their dream, and Todoroki seems to be more in line with Dimple. I don't know if it's necessarily to become God, but to kind of reign on top of everything and everyone. Some very interesting insight all around. Like I said, further insight into Mob, but also getting that insight into Ritsu is kind of really interesting too. And once again, the gangs of the two rival schools and how that's all kind of led to this confrontation. So I'm very, very excited to see where the next episode ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.